Well, as people continue to join us, we're gonna go ahead and start since a little bit after 12. Welcome. My name is Dr. Raffy Luquis, and I'm serving as the Director for Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging within the Penn State Clinical and Translational Science Institute. Before we start this session, we would like to acknowledge the acknowledgement of the land. Pennsylvania State University campuses are located on the regional homeland of the Erie, Hanaudiusawau, Lenape, Monongahela, Shawnee, Susquehannock, and Wahhazi nations. As a land-grant institution, we acknowledge and honor the traditional caretakers of this land and strive to understand and model the responsible stewardship. We also acknowledge the longer history of this land and our place in that history. Also, as we celebrate the Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month, let us reflect and celebrate the important roles of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islanders have played in our shared history. As many of you know, Amplifying Voices is a quarterly seminar series in health to amplify underrepresented voices in health research that involve areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. When we refer to diversity, it's referred to the diversity where demographic composition, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, identity, sexuality, age, the religion, nationalities, disabilities, military, veteran status, economic backgrounds, and other identities. It's representative of the human complexity of our state, nation, and global constituency. Diversity fosters innovation in research, knowledge, production, and classroom learning, greater creativity in the decision-making, and better preparation of the students for work and citizenship in increasing global society. We hope that the Amplifying Line Voices sessions promote dialogue and encourage innovative collaboration across diverse research faculty, staff, and students. By amplifying diverse perspective, we can foster belonging and inclusive environment across Penn State. Finally, the ALB sections were developed in collaboration with the Community Health, Equity, and Engagement in Research Programs, also known as CHEERS, as part of the CTSI. CHEERS promote programs, community engagement, research across Penn State, spanning many disciplines, with the overall goal of enhancing wellness and reducing health disparities. Today, we have the honor of having with us Dr. Lina Huerta Saenz, our speaker for today. I want to read a little bit of her bio before we begin. Dr. Lina Huerta Saenz is an early career physician, scientist, and pediatric endocrinologist. She has prior research experience in studies related to type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, nutrition assessment of youth with type 1 diabetes, and long-acting growth hormone multicenter clinical trials. Before joining Penn State, she worked as a sub-investigator for TrialNet Pathway to Prevention Studies, a multicenter research study dedicated to identifying type 1 diabetes antibodies in people with high genetic risk to develop type 1 diabetes. She also created the type 2 diabetes prevention program for youth with pre-diabetic at the regional clinic in Western Kansas and was the medical director for this program. The program was awarded a Healthcare Hero Award by the Wichita Business Journal in 2017. As Penn State Health, she had received funding from the Children Miracle Network to investigate further aspects of the process of partial remission of type 1 diabetes in youth. At the national level, she awarded NIH funding through the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute to the Pride Cardiovascular Disease Genetic Epidemiology Program for a meta-analysis of pediatric patients with prediabetes and microvascular diseases. Dr. Lina Huerta Saenz was selected by the Penn State Clinical Translation Science Institute as one of the 8 KL2 scholars in 2022, and most recently received the 2024 Outstanding Champion Diversity in Research by the Penn State College of Medicine. At the community level, she's involved in different boards with the Central Western Pennsylvania chapter of the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. And with them, she has created some bilingual webinars and promote cultural-driven education in Spanish and English. Dr. Huerta was born and raised in Lima, Peru. She completed medical school there and worked as a clinical research associate, working TILES, translational monitoring multicenter clinical trials for almost 3 years. Her interest in research led for her complete of the diploma in applied statistics during her role as a CRA, and finally motivated her to pursue residency training in the US. So I'm going to leave it here because I'm sure she's going to tell more about her story as we talk to her this afternoon. So Lina, welcome to our Amplifying Live Voices May section. We're definitely glad to have you here. So we start the conversation. Just tell us about you. Introduce yourself to the audience. I think we have around 18 participants. Some of them have introduced themselves through the chat, so you can see some of the names across the board. So tell us a little bit, who you are, a little bit of your story, personally, professionally, how much you want to share.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for the invitation. I feel excited, and at the same time, I think it's the first time that I have an interview in person at Penn State. I have had some interviews with actually outside groups that I belong to, so this is kind of a special, and at the same time, it's kind of like a first time experience. So thank you so much for the opportunity. So I was born and raised in Lima, Peru. So Peru is a beautiful country in South America. And actually, I'm so glad that you started this presentation with the acknowledgement of the land. So that is something very important, and maybe it's connected to why I feel connected with environment around the campus. I'm going to tell you more about that later. But so Peru was the main initially, before it was Peru. Used to be the Inca Empire. So then our native population were, they have different groups, but the Incas were the ones who dominated that South America region for many years before Spaniards came. So then after all the independence of all the different countries, we became Peru, but Peru is basically a country with a lot of native population, and mostly one of the predominant groups is Quechua. So I consider myself a multicultural, multi-ethnic person because I have Quechua, Spaniard, and Asian, as far as I know from my background. So then I think that is very important to mention, because it's going to guide you about how many of the experiences that came later came, and I kind of rediscovered myself through that KL2 program. So I did med school in Peru, and then I have different experiences. So for example, at home, when you finish med school, you need to do 1 year of social service for the country. And many of these positions, you perform your first year as a general practitioner in the highlands or on the jungle or in underserved communities. That's the whole idea, because regardless of if you're in a state medical school or a private medical school, if you are planning to stay and work at home, is a mandatory year of service. It's not an optional service. So then there were some circumstances around around that year. I was at that time planning to go for some postgraduate studies in Europe, actually, before thinking about US. And during the time that I was applying to those positions, the opportunity to do my social service in underserved communities came. I worked with the fire department from Peru. So I was jumping into the ambulances and taking care of emergencies in the cities. And these are typically cities that don't have a lot of private insurance. So that was a very nice experience. And I needed to train in other activities such as it's called pre-hospital trauma life support. So I was ready to jump and take care of whatever came with my team. We have a team of EMS, nurses, and other healthcare staff members. So that was my first engagement with the community. Unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to work with the Highlands because, well, I didn't have a chance to go to the Highlands because when I was doing this service, I also got a job that it was a unique opportunity. It was a transnational company at that time. It used to be Quintiles. And because of my background, so in medical school, I was fascinated about science. So I joined this group of medical students called Sociedad Científica San Fernando. So basically, this was a group of students who wanted to do research, because research was not mandatory in medical school. It was an optional thing, but it was not mandated. So then I joined this team, and that is how I found myself. I realized like, I'm not only excited about, the clinical care that is fantastic, but then I was driven by this curiosity that this was about finding treatments or trying to elucidate potential treatments for conditions that we don't really had any other options except for A, B, and C and the standard of care, and basically about prognosis for these chronic diseases. So then that was a unique experience as a medical student because I became the leader of that group. I was the second female president of that scientific society in 1999. It's just been a while. And it was a big role for me as a leader, but at the same time, that kind of, got the attention of future employers in my CV, and that is how I was hired by this transnational company. And this company was a CRO, a clinical research organization with headquarters in North Carolina in terms of, the international influence of this organization. But in Latin America, the headquarters was in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So then I finished my year of social service, and then almost at the end, I was hired by this company, and I received a training in what at that time was a total new field for me. That was the good clinical practices. So basically needed to be trained about all the details behind a medication that is aiming to be approved by the FDA. And that involved good clinical practices. I needed to memorize a code of federal regulations because my job was to train sites. I was involved in site selections, feasibility studies, and then monitoring of clinical trials, some degree of regulatory aspects of clinical trials. And so then I was literally starting and monitoring and closing phase 2B and phase 3 clinical trials in Peru. So not only in Lima, I traveled after my training in Argentina. I traveled a lot within Peru. Cusco was one of our sites, and of course Lima because it's the capital city. And that is how I discovered that this fantastic, this amazing. I was ready to be promoted as a regional, regional project manager in Latin America. And then I realized that I really am missing my clinical portion of my role, because my role as a CRA was a lot of regulatory and logistics and settle, being on the setting and behind the curtains of the clinical trial. But I was not working at that time as a PI, because I didn't have experience to be a PI yet. But then I realized I wanted to be a PI. I want to be there. I want to be the one who want to come out with the idea. And these were a pharmaceutical sponsored clinical trials. So that is how this journey started in terms of how I became on the journey to come to the US.
Yeah.
But that is in terms of my professional, and I don't know if you want me to tell you more about what happened after that.
Well, before you go there, I'm looking at my notes, and it says that you were the first female physician and scientist of your family. So back then, when you were growing up, was that something that you were thinking, yeah, I want to be a physician, this is something I'm interested in, or how do you get there? I mean, it's, being the first one, it's probably a big accomplishment in your family.
Yes. No, thank you so much for bringing me back to that. I am my mom is a third generation. So she was, her story is beautiful. And I need to mention my mom, because I feel like that portion of my story is crucial. So even though in the Quechua, she's Quechua, I mean, her first language is Quechua. So then Spanish is her second language, and she's actually trilingual because she also speaks English. So then my mom came from a small community in the highlands. And in this, it's basically kind of like a village, right? And then her mom was never able to go to school. So then I'm talking about, these old times where women were only seen as moms and wives, and that's it, right? So then she was not allowed to go to school. My maternal grandfather only went to school up to, I think, sixth grade.
Wow.
And then she became a mom. You know, my maternal grandmother became a mom, and she had these 9 kids. And then she worked really hard, and she was very smart. So I feel like probably, even though she didn't have a title, just looking back, I think she was maybe the first woman in the family who was the innovator and the creator behind, what came after that, because she planned ahead, and she told my uncles and my mom, like, I know I didn't go to school, but you guys will not, you all will go to college. That was her motto.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make it happen. Yeah. And she was so smart. So she made strategic connections. So just looking all the story that my mom said, that is how she set up this. And from these 9 kids, 3 of them are physicians. One was my pediatrician. Of course, I'm not a child anymore, but a pediatrician, a cardiologist, an OBGYN, 2 engineers, 1 lawyer. My mom is a retired teacher and accountant. And then the oldest aunt, she became pregnant early and stayed in the village all her life. So then, in between all these amazing uncles and family from my maternal side, we have a national math champion.
Wow.
He's my godfather, and he was a CEO for Nissan Peru. So then I would say that what is amazing about this family, my dad is a totally different story. My dad came from a wealthy family, so it's a different story. But I think that you probably in Latinos, the influence of mom is really strong. Mm-hmm. We're kind of matriarchal in terms of raising kids. So then and then of course my mom and my dad were born in the Highlands. My dad was a lawyer, and his family was wealthy. So basically, my mom, a talented girl from a small village, married this handsome lawyer from the city. So then it was an interesting combination, I would say. And then my dad went to college as his parents, and he went to, of course, Lima, Peru. That is where he went to the best law school. So different stories, but what I really like is I grew up, running behind my uncles. Mm-hmm. So they were in residency. They saved my life. Like, I'm here because I was a very sick child. Okay, very sick child. All the time. With my uncle who was my pediatrician. Horrible asthma. There were no inhaled steroids at that time, and so literally, what I remember before probably I entered into hypoxia was that my uncle came to visit me because I was with MESLES and was not doing well. And then he needed to be a CCU. He's an intensive cardiac cardiologist, so intensive care cardiologist. So remember that he came and I'm like, she's not looking good, like what is going on? She needs to go to the hospital. He called my uncle, who was a pediatric resident at the children's hospital. And I remember it's like, Victor, you need to have, like I'm bringing her, right away, either with an ambulance. She's not looking good. So then you need to call the ED. So she's ready to, we need to be there. And then, of course, I don't remember anything for a couple of days that I was on oxygen, and I had a horrible bronchopneumonia, but measles, and I survived. But I always think myself, like, what if I wouldn't have the privilege to have these 2 uncles who were residents at that time, who were kind of watching me. And because of course my dad is a lawyer, he doesn't, I mean, he was very busy. It was basically my mom and, all these uncles all the time, taking care of me, was the first female alive for my mom. And then basically I was saved by them. Wow. And my first encounter with the healthcare system from Peru was as a patient. Yeah. So then I feel like that was a crucial experience. So I love them with all my heart. I call them tíos papás. That means uncle, daddy. Like, yeah, like my parents. They're my father. I love. I still care about them. Thanks God they are still alive. And so then I grew up, running behind them, staying in the waiting room on the weekends, because I was like, uncle, it was like basically my date with them, and we're supposed to have fun the weekend. And then, you know, I know that he was doing a C-section in the private clinic, and he was doing here, he was on call. So for me, just, you know, talking and being behind them was, I kind of knew what's their lives, and it was fun. But again, I'm a female, you know, I was the sickest child of my family. So then my dad, when I mentioned, like, I didn't want to be like a physician like my uncles, like, no, forget about it. You know, look at you, you're always sick and blah, 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 blah. And he was totally against me being a physician, not because he didn't believe that I was not capable, but again, he wanted to protect me, right? Yeah. So then, but actually that was the one who kind of, you know, inspired my academic role, because even though he didn't agree with my decision to be a physician, my uncles, of course, love it. And it's like, of course, you know, you can do it. We're going to be here for you. Okay, so don't listen to daddy, you know, we're going to be here supporting you. And my mom, you know, she always said, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so, but you need to, you know, that it's going to be not easy. You know, look at your brother. My brother, who didn't really mention that he wanted to be a physician, one of my older, so I'm one of 5.
Okay.
My first sister passed away with a horrible meningitis because of inadequate healthcare in the Highlands. That is when my parents decided to move to Lima, and then my second older brother is a lawyer, and he actually is also a judge. He was one of the second youngest judges at home in Peru. So he became, wow, he was 32 years old. I mean, I believe that he's one of the most talented of the 5 of us. I mean, he's super smart. And then my second older brother is an OBGYN, although he didn't mention that he wanted to be a physician until literally the end of his high school year. Oh, wow. He didn't say anything. So everyone knew that I wanted to be a physician since I was little, because of course, you know, they saved my life. But it was kind of an interesting surprise. And he also discouraged me to be a physician. He told me, like, no, this is really hard. There are not too many girls. This is not, I mean, this is a tough, you know, lifestyle. So then I prefer that you be something less intense because of your health. Yeah. So then anyway, I didn't listen to him either. but there was I didn't know who was assigned this until again I found this group of students in med school, you know, the scientific society. But far before that, when I was 7, so my dad is not alive. He passed away in 2006, but he was a lot into books. You know, he read a lot. He was obsessed with the Spanish, you know, like he also knew Latin, because in the old times, all lawyers in Peru, they used to learn Latin for the books that they need to read. And of course, Spanish is the official language at home. And he also speaks Quechua because, you know, his grandparents speak Quechua, but he didn't like to speak Quechua. So then anyway, one of the books that I found when I was probably 7 years old on his treasure library, he has books from all over, you know, fields, was a book that in Spanish is called Personajes Ilustres de la Historia. That means, you know, is that like, you know, kind of outstanding people from history, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. And I was reading, and, you know, just because I'm curious and I already knew how to read since I was 5. And then I found a female name, and I was like, what? You know, again, my parents are not scientists, you know, and I'm like, there's a female. And guess what, do you want to guess who was the name of that scientist?
No, can you tell me?
Yes, Marie Curie.
Oh, wow. Marie Curie. Wow.
And I was like, wow, like, you know, like, there's a woman in this book, like, yeah, really? So then I found Linus Pauling, and then later on I recognized the name when I went into chemistry, yeah, for pre-med, but there was a woman. And then you know, I remember, like, it was, you know, what I remember from my 7-year-old memory, right? It's like there was something about radiation. Mm-hmm. It's like, but this is a woman. And I was like, wow, so women can go to med school, right? Or maybe to science. And I asked my uncles, like, do you have female friends? Because, you know, I was little. I don't remember if they were dating someone or not, right? And then like, oh yeah, I have some colleagues who are, you know, for physicians, and I was like, oh, okay. And that was all. So I didn't basically knew about more about Marie Curie. No one talks about Marie Curie. And I went to MES, and I went actually not to high school, yes, for the science projects. One of my biology teacher told us that she was a frustrated engineer because she was not allowed to go to engineering school. And then but I was kind of shocked. So that was my first introduction to science. And then of course, I went deeply into that when I went into my journey for high school. But that is a little bit of how I came up with my career. I think the fact that I experienced illnesses as a little child, and then I lost people because of illnesses. And then I found myself into the creativity group, people who are creative and innovators. And I thought that was really cool. And actually, I think like, even though medical school was intense, I cannot say that it was, I got sick with many asthma flares during that career and those some days of studying, but what really kept me engaged with that career, no matter how intense it could be. We're only 25 in a class of 165 classmates, so only 25 of us, and we were one of the largest groups with females, because there used to be only like maybe 15 each class. So we were 25, and it was like, boom, it was a shock for that medical school to have so many girls in medical school. But I think it was a combination of I found joy, and I found motivation when some, cold days were intense, or subjects were really intense in terms of you need to study a lot. The fact that through the creativity and the opportunity to create some projects saved me from, probably being burned out as a medical student. And then when I was at the role of president of the scientific society, we had a competition. We went for the national competition of medical societies, medical student societies, and I won a national award with my research group. And that was like, oh, wow, this is great. So then this idea was really good. And the idea came out, it was in medical education. The idea came out when I realized, like, I'm studying so hard and I didn't get the score that, these other guys got. And this is, I passed the test, but I was like, why, if I worked so hard, I didn't get this 100, like, what is wrong, And I started to kind of do some analysis with some, I had a mentor who was a neuropsychologist, and we did some study, but it came into that way. So it became, like something that I wanted to pursue further. And that is how, when I was doing my year of social service, I decided to apply for a Master of Nutrition in public health. It was in the Netherlands. I was supposed to go there, and then I was starting to learn English. So then they required me to have like a higher TOEFL score, because I will be taking biostatistics, intense courses that, require like definitely a more advanced English level. And while I was waiting for that, that is how I got, the offer from Quintiles to work for them. And then I kind of put that away until, okay, I'm gonna apply later. And then, this journey started somehow.
Now, one of the things that I read is that you say your ultimate goal, professional goal, is to contribute to the cure of children with diabetes and associated disorders. So how do you get to this area of expertise? How do you get to develop this area on diabetes and your interest in trying to do something and research and all that?
Yeah, no, great question, because I initially, when I came to the US, I was planning to be a neonatologist, because my mentors are neonatologists, and my mentors have always been pediatricians. So then, and my uncle is a neonatologist. Again, this is family influence, that I wanted to be a neonatologist. But we need to remember that, I was not exposed to pediatric endocrinology when I was at home. Whatever I knew about diabetes was this all these sad cases. Like, I knew that it was a chronic illnesses. Of course, I learned the pathophysiology, but then most of the diabetes that we used to see in adults was type 2 diabetes. I never met any child with type 1 diabetes until 2007, when I was working as a kind of, hospitalist in a private fancy clinic from Lima, Peru, where we used to have a lot of patients from, the US Embassy, the France Embassy, most of the hospitalists, general practitioners, we needed to be bilingual because we have patients. And then that is how I was exposed to someone, a child with type 1 diabetes. So then I didn't really think that I didn't know enough about pediatric endocrinology. I never met any pediatric endocrinologists who was closer to me. But during the fellowship, and that is how, life has their puzzles in a way that I think, God has a plan. I'm a woman of faith, so then I believe in God, but I also believe in nature. So this what we call syncretism. So then from my native culture, we believe in the Pachamama, so the mother's nature. We believe that we need to be in contact with nature, but at the same time, I was raised in Catholic school, so then it's a little both. So then I didn't know enough about pediatric endocrinology, but then my life went in the way that I went for fellowship to Kansas City, Children's Mercy. And at Children's Mercy, it is Midwest, mostly Caucasian population. And literally, we had every day at least 4 or 5 new kids coming with type 1 diabetes.
Wow.
In all these areas from the Midwest. And it was like, whoa, a huge experience because I did residency in Philadelphia, North Philly. So then I had some exposure, just some exposure to type 1 diabetes from some families at between Albert Einstein and St. Chris. That is where I did many of my clinical more experiences, but it was not as much as when I went to fellowship. And I was taking care of at least even 4 to 7 kids with neonatal diabetes daily. It was massive. And I realized that this was a terrible problem to be diagnosed at such a young age. And at that time, I was very inspired by my mentor, my division chief. They were type 1 diabetes researchers. So then I became exposed to this experience of type 1 diabetes. Like we had a lot of different other conditions, but type 1 diabetes was a main one, the largest and more powerful. So then a very strong clinical experience. Like I have seen so many kids on DKA with good and bad outcomes. So then, and then inspired by my mentor from that time. So then I said, this is a terrible problem. And I realized that there was something that they were saying at that time. Fortunately, that has changed. And it was that you can eat whatever you want. That was part of, what people used to say to kids with type 1 diabetes. You can eat whatever you want. And I was not totally sure about that. I realized, like, I'm not totally sure this is true, but you are, I want to talk about you don't question, I'm Latina, so as many of us who are Latinos, you don't question your faculty too much, right? You question them from that perspective when you're in the research setting, but if they tell you that this is the motto, this is how you approach this, you kind of, inside your view, you question that. But thanks to the perspective of my research mentor, I told him, like, I don't agree with what we're saying to people, what the guidelines recommend, eat healthy, but what does it mean eating healthy? I don't have diabetes, I don't have type 1 diabetes, but I don't need like kids are being allowed to eat as long as they eat carbs. And then he started to tell me, yes, tell me why, he kind of prompted me to, why are you saying that? What are you proposing? And that is how we came out with this assessment of how critical it is to assess the nutrition knowledge, the nutrition literacy of families with type 1 diabetes and kids with type 1 diabetes. So then that is how I come to endocrinology. But from neonatology to peds endocrinology, I forgot that little phase. When I was a pediatric resident, actually in the NICU, I was super happy, with my babies, taking care of them, intubating them, making them survive. And I was so happy with that. Some of them were small. Some of them were infants of mothers with diabetes. And some of them have other conditions such as, severe hypocalcemia, seizures. And I was like, okay, we need to call the peds endo. That is what as an intern, they told me, you need to call peds endo. And I said, okay, so I didn't know too much about the PITS endo team, and they came, they look super smart. And then I said, like, well, you need to do this with the sugars, you need to do this with the critical labs if the baby has hypoglycemia. And they're like, okay. So they're like, it was kind of a huge thing to learn about this integration of physiology, biochemistry, because you need to learn all these glycogen pathway, how you metabolize glucose, how you metabolize fats, how you metabolize protein, and then integrated that with the pathophysiology. And I became like very, very excited and also curious about the work of these consultants called pediatric endocrinology. So I kind of, started to talk with the fellow, the residents, and then I decided to make a rotation, to request for a rotation with them in my second year of residency. And I applied to a big hospital too for, to do my elective. And I didn't get a rotation in pediatric endocrinology, but I got the pediatric endocrinology rotation with a group of St. Christopher's Hospital for Children. It's such an amazing team. And then after just 1 week, I said, I'm gonna quit neonatology. And at that time, I have done a lot of neonatology. And then what it really was fascinating, even though I love my NICU babies, those are my favorite consults, is that I asked them, once they're done with your consultation, what happens after that? And he said, like, what do you mean? Like, we follow them in clinic. Like, for life? Yes, if they have a chronic, illness, we follow them for life. So it doesn't matter the age, as long as it's in the group of pediatrics, birth to 22, 24 years old, we follow them for life. So then you can see what happened after, you did this intervention, and then you are able to kind of see the next steps. And it's like, yes, because we follow them. So you do consults, you can do, you do these urgent consults, but then you also follow them in clinic. And I was like amazed about that opportunity, because in the NICU, and I was really good, intubating, putting IV lines, UVCs, like just ask me any of those procedures. Like I think I still can do it really well after all these years. But you say, you basically say bye to the baby once they graduate. You make them survive. They're able to breathe by themselves. They're able to eat by mouth, or either with a tube. And then you maybe follow some of those babies who are high risk in the first year of life, because they're high risk newborns, but then that's it. You don't know what happened after that. And I cannot deal with that question inside myself, like what happened with that baby. The baby had a seizure, the baby had hypoglycemia, the baby has some, delays, but who is going to find out if this is going to result in the future? Like, I need to see the whole movie. Like, I cannot live with only the first part of the movie. I need to know the answer. Okay. And then that is how I told my mentors, I love you, all of you, you inspire me, but I feel like I cannot, I need to know the answer. And I think pediatric endocrinology is an amazing field, because you need to know your basic science, physiology, biochemistry, all of that finally made sense. All these, step one subjects for those who are in the route of MD, like finally for me, everything makes sense. Like this is why I needed to work so hard with the step one, to finally use that and integrate that with my clinical skills from clinical rotations.
So it looked like a lot of your different experiences and your mentors and your family background and all of that had got you to where you are today, I guess. So as I'm looking at time, so we don't have like another 20 minutes or so before, well, less than 20 minutes. So one other question we have is, what challenges, if any, have you encountered? Was this personal, professionally, when it comes to somebody who comes from an underrepresented group in your career?
Yeah, well, thank you for that question. So then I never felt underrepresented until coming to the US. So that was a first shock, because again, I'm telling you, even though I have native, ancestry, probably because of my paternal side, I look tall for many of that community from my maternal side. My mom is only 5'1". Yeah. They're all, petite people. And then my dad was 5'11", and he was the shortest of his, cousins and family. So then I never felt underrepresented at home. I would say like never. Yeah. And then suddenly, Philadelphia, that is where I did my residency, Albert Einstein, the best place ever. Okay. It's so multicultural. Like I didn't really feel anything, not even underrepresented. But the language was a big shock, you know, because we don't do med school in English. And so this is a Spaniard, you know, the official language. So Spanish was the fact that I was not an English speaker, so trying to communicate well with people. But I didn't feel underrepresented in Philadelphia, probably because of the multiculturality and people coming up from all over the world. But when I went to the Midwest, it was a big, strange feeling, okay? Either because they were not prepared for, you know, I was the only Latina, all these beautiful, you know, fellows, but you, the only one who looked Latina, and then some probably met few, you know, females who have, friends who have Indian ancestry from India, but I was the only Latina that year. So it was a whole change in terms of, you know, assuring that people didn't, you know, people were not thinking that I was a physician. People were thinking that I was either the dietitian or the Spanish translator. And I was like, why do they think in that way?
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, like, so then I was like, I don't ask, you know, when people come from, you know, like a person from this phenotype come to the division, to whatever, I don't ask them, hey, are you a model? Because you are, you know, you have blue eyes. You don't ask them that question, right?
Yeah.
So then it was like a big cultural change for me. That I was not given any warning. So I was like, it took me by surprise. So that was a big challenge. And then, but again, my parents, again, I told you, like they were born in the Highlands. They moved to Lima. So they also migrated to Lima, the capital city from Peru. And I feel like, you know, that, and then again, my maternal family, that Quechua, they, even though they speak Spanish, you know, some of them have also an important sound that some people call it here accent. So from the Quechua, you know, so then I think that I wouldn't have been able to basically pass, or maybe, yes, you know, kind of deal with that new environment and the new situation if I wouldn't be able to have the support of my mom, reminding me that, you know, that, yeah, it's a journey. Okay, like, you know, and I should be able to overcome that. And so the language culture, knowing that I was a Latina, but and I was not, again, many of our Latino community are not necessarily in some academic positions, depending on the ABC city demographics, right? So then that didn't happen in Philadelphia. So then, again, why people initially thought, like, you know, whenever I went for a consult, that they thought like I was a Spanish translator. I was like, there is something wrong, you know, in the perception of some cultures here. And then I feel like, you know, that was an important phase. Yeah, you know, first of all, thinking that people have bias, unconscious or non, you know, unconscious, either way. But then I work really hard. I work, you know, I forgot to mention something. In addition to be, you know, coming from this super hardworking family, from this small village, I was also educated in a Peruvian Japanese school. So that is an important part of me. My first mentor, as you know, as a mentor, was a Sensei Moi Hiroshi. He's not alive anymore, but so then all the values from the Japanese culture, because they work really hard to overcome all the consequences of, you know, the wars and all of that. And so then I think that is part of me. Like I knew that there are some challenges in front of me, and I cannot give up. I can cry, I can be upset, I can have all these emotions, so, you know, from the human perspective, but there is something that is similar in my Peruvian Japanese background and my Quechua background, and we don't give up. So then give up is not an option. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, because, you know, you can, if you don't give up, sometimes you can get into the burnout area, but you know, you honor your work with, you know, you work hard, and when you work hard, you achieve honor, and then it's okay, it's normal, it's very human to have weaknesses, but we were taught to overcome our challenges, and that is how we made it.
And I think you probably lead to the next question I'm going to ask you. So what are some of the, based on all the things you have experienced so far in your career, personal life, and so on, and, you know, coming from a different background, working with different diverse communities and so on, what are some of the success stories that you have that you can share, or maybe some of the lessons you have learned along the lines?
Well, there are many, successful stories. Like, again, I study by myself for the steps, to take the boards to come and do the license, the medical license in the US. Many people come to academies and, they're like really expensive. And I basically study at home. I bought my books and I did some rotations, and then I studied by myself and I passed the USMLE and I was certified. That was a huge step. I didn't believe that will happen. I mean, I was just like a talented. I always believe in my talent. My family believed in me and I believe in myself, but I knew that it was a hard pathway. So that was like, wow, this is amazing. I feel like, I matched at my first attempt in my second best option. And I couldn't believe it either. Again, I believe in God, and I believe like God is guiding me in these pathways, otherwise it wouldn't happen. That is what I think so. And then when I was a resident, and again, one thing is winning an award in research at home. And then a different step is like, are you able to make it here? Do I have chances in research? And when I was a senior in my pediatric residency year, I won an award. So it was a competition between all the residents from Albert Einstein Medical Center, and I was the third one, and the only one for pediatrics. So that was like, it was like a reassuring award, because I realized like, yes, so then maybe I should pay more attention to my ideas, because this is my pathway. I didn't have any special people behind me. It was like, it was me with good mentors. So then I found the chairwoman of the Department of Pediatrics believed in me. I believe in her, and so then there was some awards that came, as a fellow in the Endocrine Society. I was selected. So then I think these achievements and awards that I have been receiving in research kind of, show me that this is my community, the research community, the academic community. I belong to them. And, despite of the struggles, because there are many, challenges that happen to all of us, regardless of your background. It's just the fact that you want to go into research, in the research pathway, if you want to be a female, you want to be a mom, whatever is your background, okay, this is not where we were initially educated at, but when in the research community, when they realize like you are you have a creative brain, you have a creative idea, you are an innovator, and you want to do something to help an important problem of the nation, I think that you're connected. That is what I'm trying to come out with. I think, people think about the background or maybe these different cultural perspectives, but what really matters in academia, and I think it should matter in many aspects, is that whoever came from whatever history, background, personal challenges, it's like we want to contribute, that is our ultimate goal, like, again, I'm gonna go back to my degree, like you have a curiosity for something that maybe you have a gift, and how to use your gifts to come up with something bigger that is not going to be for you, it's going to be for the humanity. And humanity means people from different perspectives, cultures, skin colors, mentalities, whatever is your view of everything. But at the end, humans are the ones who come to the hospital with illnesses. And it doesn't matter. You don't ask them, what is your background? It's like, you have this problem, either cancer, diabetes, or whatever, autoimmune chronic disease, and they're looking for a cure. They're looking for some relief. And that is what we do in academia, and we are doing in the healthcare system. We must, we have a gift, we have gifts. We must come out with an answer for those humans. So that's why I don't like to call myself provider. I don't like that word. I'm a physician. I am a human caretaker. I take care of humans.
Wow.
it's my job to return to humans what I was given, with the gifts that I was given, and I think that is what I tell to my team, my students who are, we come from different cultures and perspectives, we don't talk too much about our cultural background. We talk about an idea, a problem, how we can fix a problem. And I don't really matter, it doesn't really matter. I just want to know how your talent can join my talent, our talents, and we can make something really big for humanity.
And I think when we talk about, the diversity of the professional, the diversity of people working in the field, I think that's a powerful message, to get people together, regardless of where they're coming from. Just the outcome is just to help the person in front of you, that patient, that individual. As you said, they're looking for an answer, whether it's just to get some relief or a cure or whatever that might be. So I think that's really powerful hearing from physician, because I think sometimes people see physicians as these like high level figures, like, you have to they're the professional people. We just have to do whatever they say. But hearing you saying, no, it's the opposite. It's more about me as a person helping others. I think that that's something that's really important that we should understand when it comes to working with other people. I think that's powerful. I'm gonna see if anybody, we have a few minutes left. Anybody in the audience have any questions for you before I ask a final question? I don't see any questions. So in the last couple of minutes, anything else you want to share about yourself? Anything else that you want to think, here's something to learn, here's something that I plan to do, here's something that, might have impacted me in a one positive or negative way, whatever that might be, that, I want to make sure that all the people who might be thinking about pursuing a career like mine, let's say we're talking to students or younger professionals, think people that might say, hey, maybe after listening to her, maybe that's something I would like to do too. What will you tell them? What would be your message to them or your advice to them?
Yes, I think that we need to follow our heart. So, I believe humans are, we need to be connected, our brain, our soul, but, people also call it heart, we need to be connected. And I think that, and it's a whole process to discover who we are. Like, why do we came all this way? Like, why? Why did I do all this? Why did I walk all this pathway? Right? With sometimes a lot of happiness, sometimes pain, sometimes crying, sometimes all these human emotions. When you find your why, it's easier to know where to go. And sometimes, we lost our why. I think that it's important to always ask ourselves our why. And that's why I mentioned when I was exhausted many times during the medical career, because taking care of humans is a huge responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And you have emotions, you get tired, you have a personal life. My mentors mean like my family, the generous mentors that I have found in my pathway. And I need to say there have been males, there have been a lot of females, and you know who you are. There are so many names here in Peru, in Philadelphia, in Kansas City, from all these professional societies that I have been, fortunate to receive mentoring, Pride, the CBD from Washington University, Philadelphia, Penn State, the KL2. They have important leaders at Penn State that I met even before the KL2 that really, they were very hopeful. They told me, I know, it's hard to get protected time, but just keep working, keep doing your stuff, keep connecting with people, keep doing this. Talk with people, especially people that have been walking this pathway many years, many years before you. And be honest, tell them what are the problems, tell them what you find, how do you feel. But also, I think it's my job to only, not only mention a problem, but also come up with a solution, right?
Yeah, yes.
I see a problem, but I have a possibility that I think I know how to fix this. And this is, this is the 4 possibilities in my mind, and contribute, you can detect a problem, because there will be problems. I mean, this is, we're humans, they're always putting in a pathway. We're not perfect, but try to come up with a solution and do your work, not only ask and, I want to go here, I want to do this, and I want to do that, and then push yourself, reset. Sometimes we need to reset. And for me, that is nature. So that's why I need to have nature. Like I reconnect when I have nature around me because, again, either because of my native values, I feel connected with myself when I'm surrounded by nature, and that helps me to reconnect and find out who I am. What is my next step? I am in the right place. I am doing the right mission. I'm really following the right mission. And being honest to yourself, I feel like that is important, but believe in yourself. I think if you don't believe in yourself, like, again, it's not about, you are, many of you are part of your background, but then you're unique. We are all unique. And then that is what I'm trying to say. I don't see my colleagues, my classmates are, oh, he belongs to ABCD cultural group. His name is AB, okay, and he brings this talent, and I want to work with this person because he has this talent and how we can make it happen. So then, it's like, I think labeling people is not okay because it can reduce the productivity and it can give you bias to work together and take the most, of that person in front of you. So then believe in yourself, work hard, be honest in your work, always be honest. And don't look for fame. I don't look for fame. Again, Mary Curie, she's amazing. That's awesome. But I don't know if I will ever, get at that level, of famous science. But if I do something that is important at the end of my journey, and that finally is kind of part of my inheritance to humanity, I'm happy. And I know, like, I can live this human life, honored to have served other humans, and I feel like, be happy with that. And I feel like that is what I look for, whatever is gonna take me, whatever route I'm gonna go, I just need to keep working hard and believing in myself, and surround yourself around, with mentors, people who respect you, people who believe in you, people who want to nurture you. And that is crucial because without my mentors, and I want to say thank you so much to the CTSI, to the KL2, to my KL2 directors, my prior ones and the current ones, to our amazing leader, Jennifer. I met her a few years ago and I was impressed by all what she has done, and everyone who is a mentor for me inside Penn State Health. Like, this is my first faculty position. So this basically set up my journey to continue as a researcher. It was not possible before in this dimension. So then thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about myself.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say, thank you in the native language of my ancestors. Okay.
Go ahead.
So then, thank you. There are many types of Quechuas, but one of the ones that I really like is Solpaiki.
Okay.
Or Solpayaki means thank you. And then when you say bye, because we don't say bye and I will not see you forever, it's typically a bye that see you tomorrow. It's like Pakarinkana. Pakarinkana means see you tomorrow. And then so then I think that that is part of who I am. I'm a multicultural, multiracial physician and a human being, right? And that is what I really want to remind myself, I'm a human being. Whatever is my background, I'm a human being, and I'm in the pathway of science, and it's my job, it's my duty to do an important thing for others with the gifts that I have been given in this world.
Well, I was going to say gracias for your time.
Gracias.
And again, thank you for everything. I know we are already at 1 minute after 1, so we are ended. We are at the end of our presentation this afternoon, and again, we appreciate taking the time. I mean, I'm looking at some of the comments that people put in the chat, and they're all impressed and really talking about how amazing stories you have. So I think we might have to have some other time to keep talking to you, because I think your story is so immense, and I'm sure you have a long journey to go from here now. So again, once again, I wanted to thank you for your time, and thank all the participants who were part of this presentation today. And again, until next time, I will see you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.